I'd like to call the meeting to order. The Board of Leavenworth County Commissioners would like to invite everyone to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to start with a moment of silence, please. Roll call, start with Commissioner Stiebens. Here. Commissioner Smith is present. Commissioner Culbertson. Here. Commissioner KAAZ.
Here.
And Commissioner SCHIMKE.
Here.
All commissioners are present in some form. We have no public comment now. We'll have some public comment after our meeting. And administrative business. Is there any administrative business this time, Mr. LOUGHRY?
I do have a couple of items for administrative business today. If I can keep my glasses from fogging up, I might be able to read my notes. First of all, the CARES Act funds, a little more guidance is coming out on those. We still haven't received the official notification, I guess, from the Sparks Committee, but they did alter the original date they had set for September 15th for us to come up with a plan to spend the funds, or we were going to have to send them back. They changed that to August 15th, which by the time we get the funds, it'll be July 15th. So we get 30 days after we receive the funds to figure out how they have to be spent, and that is true of the local municipalities as well. The resolution came out yesterday that we'll have to adopt in order to receive those funds. I have some concerns about it, but I think the way the state's worded it is you either approve this or you don't get the funds. And I think they're coercing us to give up our rights to these funds under the federal act, but I don't know that we have any option, and it's definitely too short of a window to debate it for too long. With that, I would like the commission to consider selecting 2 commissioner members to work with myself and maybe a couple of staff to develop a plan for how we will spend and allocate those funds, the county's portion, and that way we can get working on it now versus waiting until the funds actually get here, given the tight window. And if there are 2 commissioners who are interested in doing that, I'll work with them however I can as far as scheduling.
This is Commissioner Paz. I would be interested.
I would also be interested.
Okay. All right. And then if for some reason you can't make it or something, I'll be available anytime.
Okay. We'll start having those meetings here fairly quick, and I'll circulate to the board the guidelines from the federal government that state what the restrictions are on how to spend that money. I think I've sent it out once before, but I'll make sure and get the most up-to-date version out to you. And then with the goal of by, say, the July 15th when we receive the funds, that we will actually have some kind of at least a rough plan put together on how we're going to allocate and spend those funds.
Okay.
The other thing, budget-wise, wrapping up this week are my budget meetings with all the departments. After that, there are some of them that are making some changes after those meetings. We'll get that put together and bring it back to the board. I'd like to check all of your availability, and you don't have to get it to me right now, but if you could get back to me this week. For the week of July 13th through the 17th, really I was looking at that week right after the 4th of July, but because we have that special meeting on the 8th, I didn't want to take too much time in there. So the week of the 13th through the 17th, I'd like to set up the one-on-one meetings with the department heads and the Board of County Commissioners. Okay. So if you can let me know your availability, if there's any days that don't work or times that don't work.
Were you thinking of certain days at this point?
Well, we avoid Wednesday because that's our normal meeting date, but Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday is
you're going to need 4 days.
All available. And previously, several years ago, we only met with the departments that were asking for changes or amendments, but I think last year we started that you meet with all departments. So with that, we will need probably 2 to 3 days at least to get it through all of them.
Yeah.
And did you have anything? Okay. I think that that was it for administrative business today.
Okay. All right. Then we'll move on to the consent agenda. Has everybody had a chance to look at the consent agenda? Is there any item that needs to be removed and considered separately on the consent agenda? Then I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Voting?
Aye.
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 Commissioner KAAZ votes aye.
Commissioner SCHIMKE votes aye.
Okay. All right. We're ready for planning and zoning. Crystal, how are you today?
Well, Mr. Chairman, how are you?
Fine.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, this is a request for a temporary special use permit for a clean rubble landfill for King's Construction. King's Construction is involved in the demolition of the E58 bridge. And instead of taking it to an existing landfill that accepts clean rubble, which is about 5 miles away, the applicants are requesting to be able to bury this on private property. The private property is located within the haul route of where the bridge activity is taking place. The property owner has agreed to this, and they do need a temporary special use permit. This should only take a couple of days to actually bury it. They do meet the requirements for a clean rubble landfill by the state of Kansas. The applicants are here and will answer any questions that you may have about this.
Commissioners have any questions of the applicant? I think it's just pretty cut and dried.
And staff's recommending favorable towards this.
Well, staff's recommendation is that it meets the requirements for a temporary special use permit, and we've offered conditions in the event that the board wishes to recommend approval. So there is an existing clean rubble landfill within the area that would accept these materials.
Nearby.
5 miles away.
5 miles.
Is there a reason it can't go to that?
You would have to ask the applicant.
It's going to create down a gravel road to cut through. Your time, efficiency, and we need to get this bridge on schedule and make sure it stays on schedule.
Would it delay if we went to the other landfill, would that potentially delay the bridge?
Definitely.
Well, the bridge is demolished already, I'm pretty sure, so this is just stacked up waiting to be buried.
Mm-hmm. But the way I look at it is anything we can do to speed up the construction.
Exactly.
I'm 100% for, so it would definitely.
And if it keeps heavy trucks off the gravel road during the summer.
Yeah, less truck traffic on a
Less truck traffic.
round trip would be 10 miles, so less truck traffic on a 10-mile route.
We get all the dust complaints down south. We don't need Jeff to get them up north. So, I think it's you're talking a couple days here. Passes all the legal hurdles. Unless I'm missing something,
I just didn't I'm just trying to understand it. If there's a landfill 5 miles away, why would we? I mean, just for convenience that it's nearby. Is that that's the main rationale?
efficiency. It may help the landowner too if there's some ditches that are
Does it
washed
affect
out.
the cost at all?
I'm unaware.
It wouldn't affect our cost. The project was bid, and that disposal of rubble is obviously part of that, but it probably impacts the cost to the King's Construction, obviously, because of the extra 10 miles round trip, like you pointed out.
But if this is only going to take a few days, if you're going to truck it to the demolition landfill and the C&D in Easton, outside of Easton, it's going to drag it out a lot longer, and you're going to get a lot of complaints on truck traffic and dust and stuff like that. I think it's a good option.
Yeah,
Any other
that's no problem
questions?
at all.
Is there any other questions on this special use permit? Then I'll entertain a motion to approve it.
I make a motion that we approve special use permit for Clean Rebel private fill for King's Construction on property located at 24257 Millwood Road.
Commissioner Cobb seconds.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting?
Aye.
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 Commissioner Cobb votes aye.
Commissioner Shimke votes aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. All right. We're ready for Tonganoxie.
We have one other item,
Oh.
I think, before then.
We do?
The Board of County.
Oh, we got to go, I'm sorry, we do got to go to the Board of County Health. I thought that was at the end.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, good morning. This is David Van PARYS. I ask that this matter be brought before you to consider a matter of public health. I'd ask that the Board adjourn from a meeting of the Board of County Commissioners and reconvene as the Board of Health of the county. A simple motion to that effect would suffice.
So moved.
Have a motion to adjourn on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Voting?
Aye.
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 Commissioner Cobb votes aye.
Commissioner Shimke votes aye.
All right, we're reconvening as the Board of County Health.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, you've been provided with an RBA that I believe sets out the justification for this meeting. There is a property in the county that has basically no septic system that's functioning as far as we can tell. Staff has been able to observe attempts by the current occupants of the property to dig a ditch to another ditch for the purpose of dealing with their wastewater. That ditch conveniently collapsed due to recent rainfall. The long and the short of it is this property has a troubled history. It has been, in fact, it's currently in Codes Court. However, the Codes Court system is rather slow compared to the health hazard that is posed by this. Further, I fully anticipate that we will need additional enforcement actions that are outside of the scope of Codes Court. So I would ask that the Board of Health consider declaring that an imminent health hazard exists on this property. I would then utilize that finding to request district court assistance in enjoining the occupancy of that property until a proper septic system is in place.
Okay. This is just outside the city limits a little ways?
Just outside the city of Leavenworth.
Like 100 feet.
Right.
And I just wanted to add that I've been contacted by several adjacent property owners, and this is just one of the problems, but the bigger problem is all the junk on this property, and for several years now we've been trying to get this cleaned up. So this is really just one part of it, but it's an issue that needs to be addressed.
And we've been here before on this property?
Several times.
Yeah.
Commissioner Culbertson is correct. We have attempted to address the issue of the junk and debris on the property, and that's been through Codes Court. However, Kansas law, while it allows cities to remediate nuisances such as this, does not allow counties to. However, the issue of the junk removal is not one that poses an imminent health hazard, as does this
And there's a
illegal treatment of waste.
There's a large drainage area behind there too, if I'm at the right place. I think we were there about 10 years ago. Has it been that long? Probably not
We've
that
been
long.
off and on there for longer than that, Commissioner. This is a troubled property.
Okay. All right, so any commissioners have any questions of Mr. Van PARYS on this item? Then what would your motion you'd like to have?
Make a finding that an imminent health hazard exists on the property described, and the CAMA number is there. I think if you just referenced it as 2210 Ottawa Street, that would suffice for the action.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting.
Aye.
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 Commissioner Cobb votes aye.
Commissioner Shimke votes aye.
Okay. Then I'll
Commissioners, I want to thank you for your action. The appropriate motion would then be to adjourn as the Board of Health and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn as the Board of County Health.
So moved.
Second.
Voting.
Aye.
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 Commissioner CAAZ, aye.
All right, we'll reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners. Now, we're ready for the City of Tonganoxie.
Commissioners, in 2017, the county entered into an agreement with the City of Tonganoxie for the development of their industrial park. At that time, the county granted $5 million towards the development of that park for certain improvements. Those improvements have been completed, is my understanding. There are funds remaining. I think, Georgian, you can correct me, I think he says about $1.7 million
That's correct.
in funds that remain. And according to the current agreement, those funds are to be returned to the county, and I think the city has a proposal to alter that agreement or enter into a new one.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark. Good morning.
Good morning.
Commissioners, appreciate the opportunity to have this discussion with you and for you guys to make time and for your staff to be as accommodating as they have been to allow for this. A couple of quick introductions. Again, I'm George Brakovich, the city manager. We have Councilman Jake Dale, Mayor David Freeze, and I believe we're going to have at least one, if not two, council people participating by phone, but I think they're dialing in as we speak. So, again, Mr. Loughrey kind of laid it out. There's a history here. We've got a quick presentation. So, Mark, I don't know, does the camera pick up the presentation or?
Yeah,
It's on our screen.
I'll turn off that light up there.
Might be my head through it. I cleared it.
You're good.
And
I'm
then
good.
can I just scroll?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Get to the next slide here. So just a quick development timeline. So it predates my employment in Leavenworth County, but my understanding is the county did a sales tax ballot initiative, and at some point, both the city of Leavenworth and the city of Tonganoxie each got about $5 million grants to go develop business parks. This development timeline outlines from the time the city received the funding through the major scopes of the project and kind of how that fit into a performance timeline calendar that we had built into the original agreement. So some of the accountability measures in that. In our agreement, the city was required to provide monthly progress reports to the county staff, which I believe we honored, and really the time frame for that was about July of 2017 through June of 2019. After that, both Mr. Loughrey, Mr. Van PARYS, and I have been in fairly consistent contact in terms of what's left and how we would address some of the issues in the original agreement. Again, as a reminder, each scope of work, mass grading, public improvements, landscape and monument design, those all went through the public procurement process, and at each interval we provided that to county staff for review. And ultimately where we ended up is we had significant savings from the original engineer's estimate of cost. In fact, the original estimate was somewhere very close to $6 million total for the park. And so in terms of how those scopes of work were identified, we always assume that there could, a $5 million grant may not be enough to complete all of the scopes of work. But we went, and so there's a lot of the engineering design, the way the project's been terraced, how we limited waterway credits that needed to be, wetland credits that needed to be purchased. All of those went into the design and ultimate execution of this park. And at the end of the day, as Mark mentioned, we have approximately $1.7 million of that original $5 million grant remaining. Just this slide may not be that great, but I wanted to reference the city actually acquired this property in December of 2008, and the property itself is 240 acres. However, we only developed for the business park the 140 acres, so there's a balance of about 100 acres. And what we didn't address is the most challenging from a topography standpoint. There's a lot of rock in the backside of that. So as you see, I'm going to roll through these slides pretty quick. It's just kind of a progression of aerial photos of going from that terraced farmland. We moved 450,000 cubic yards of dirt to balance the project. You can kind of start to see in September of 17 the grading for each lot, the maintained waterways. The wetlands actually, we think, are a marketing feature of the park because it allows for stormwater detention to already be accounted for as opposed to each project coming in and accounting for it. Again, October, we're wrapping up the mass grading. January, we moved to the public improvements, which included sanitary sewer lines in the park, water lines inside the park, everything inside the rectangle or the legal description of the park, the public roadway, and you can see that progression through April. In June, the road was in, we were getting ready to do the sidewalks. December of 2018, we sold the first lot to Unilock, a paving stone manufacturer. They have a two-phase project. The first phase was to put in a sales office, and this serves as their Western Region Sales Distribution Center. So you can see that project was starting to take shape. And then in September of last year, fall, we moved to the Landscape and Monument Design project, and we completed all those scopes. Mark, the park today, this video is like 1 minute long. Will it work if I try to click the
Believe
link?
it will.
Okay.
I think that should have a connection.
If it doesn't look like it's wanting to be active. There it goes. I'm sorry if there's sound. I'll try to mute it. Again, this is just to give you an idea. I know most of you have been out to visit the park, but just to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like today and the state of completion that it's in. So there's multiple lots available. They range in size from just under 3 acres to about 34 acres. Again, this is Unilock. You get a sense of kind of the building quality that's been required as part of a design overlay. It's embedded into the business park zoning. I apologize for the choppy nature of this. All right, so Mark, just close out of this. Hopefully it'll go back. Nope.
Double click that attachment that's right there. That's it.
Bring this back up. All right. I'll go back to where we were. So that gives you a sense of, again, those major scopes that have been completed. Again, as I get back to the spot I was at, really one of the major cost savings came in on the mass grading project. We moved dirt for pennies on the dollar. I mean, that scope alone came in at a little over $1 million below the engineer's opinion of cost on it. And so, again, going through those scopes and trying to show what the total investment to date at the park is, including things that are being contemplated either in this year's CMIP or next year's CMIP for the city budget. So if you look at this, on the left-hand side, what we try to account for are things that the $5 million county grant paid for in this process. So you see the scopes, again, mass grading, the public improvements. We also, in the public improvements, we included the cost to Westar to run 3-phase power, Midco to run fiber to the park, engineering cost, again, both for GBA, who served as the civil and project design engineers, as well as associated city engineering review costs with BG, again, the landscape and monument sign, and then we had a payment to make to Kansas Gas to run a new steel line, service line to the park. And so we're coming in just under $3.3 million. Then on the right-hand side are other costs associated with the project that the city has borne. One, first and foremost, the site acquisition costs. We continue to service debt, annual debt service on the amount that was issued to acquire the property. County Road 1, this year we're making a $500,000 balloon payment to the county. I know the county probably had a lot more costs associated with County Road 1, but from the city's perspective, paying $1.5 million for a road that's not inside our city limits, however, acknowledging that it is a key road to get folks to the business park, that cost is on the city's ledger. The Interceptor sanitary sewer line, we've been working with the city's financial advisor and bond counsel to take a look at that. That total amount represents P&I over a 30-year term and is coming in at just over $3.6 million. Water line, so anything outside, again, of the legal description for the business park was not an allowable expense for the grant, so we spent $75,000 of city funds to get the water line put out there, and then we hosted a marketing event with LCDC and some other partners last fall to highlight the park. We invited commercial brokers to come see that Leavenworth County and Tonganoxie is not that far outside the 435 loop. So again, as you can see up there, all in all, that represents a total investment of a little north of $11 million. And I'm going to keep rolling through this, but if you folks have any questions at any point, I don't mind stopping. We've just got a few more slides here. Which really brings us again to the work session and why we're here today. Earlier this year, I was working with Mr. LOUGHRY, Mr. Van Paris. We knew we needed to make an amendment or edit the existing agreement. So in April, we had the city attorney draft an amendment. In a nutshell, it's actually, I think, only a 2-page document, but we said, hey, the performance standards that were set forth in the original agreement, the city has met those performance standards. And in exchange, we would just like to be able to retain the balance of the funds to continue to market the park. And that continues to be the top priority for the city, is retaining those funds to advance the park. There's some other specific costs that are still floating out there, or ideas that have either been discussed, have been brought to our attention by brokers or developers as we market the park, and so I wanted to share some of those with you as well. One is, again, even though we have sewer lines and water lines and a connected water line inside the park, one big piece is still putting in an Interceptor sanitary sewer line that connects to our water plant or treatment plant all the way back out to the business park. I've got a slide that will go over that in a little greater detail. Some land acquisition strategies. I mentioned we still have 100 acres that's not developed, that is adjacent to this park. There's other single ownership, large tracts of property in the surrounding area, and that might be something to consider, take a look at. And then finally, using some of this balance for incentives. I mentioned that we took advantage of some of the wetlands, and so most of those lots are terraced. So you might have a 34-acre lot and then about a 4-foot drop to get to a 30-acre lot. And so if we ever had a project that wanted 60, 65 acres and we needed to combine those, we still have some considerable land costs to level out or combine those lots. And another thing is we've talked to some commercial developers about building large-scale spec buildings, 200, 250,000 square feet that can be subdivided into 20, 30, 40, 50,000 square foot buildings, and we believe that to be a strong player in that, we would also, in addition to the city's strong tax abatement plan through IRBs, we'd also have to offer some sort of cash incentive to help offset the cost of a $12 to $17 million building of that scale. And that might be something that's necessary in order to structure a lease situation on price per square foot that makes Leavenworth County extremely competitive. So again, those are just some ideas. If you ask the city what's our top priority, the top priority is to retain those funds to continue to advance the park. Again, we're just offering some of these as discussion points. The Interceptor sanitary sewer, if you can see this, there it goes. Okay, so this is a section of the engineer's preferred alignment, and the red line represents the Interceptor sewer line. Ultimately, coming down at the bottom of the picture here, this blue line represents city limits, and that's the business park. We actually ran that sewer line all the way to the south end of the business park. inside with the infrastructure we put inside the park. The blue dotted line to the north there represents the other edge of city limits. The yellow lines represent parcels. And so when you're looking at this run of this proposed sewer line, in addition to servicing the park, it puts into play nearly 250 acres of county property right now that's divided amongst about 8 total landowners. So it becomes a very interesting high level of development potential with this property. In fact, these properties where KDOT wants the city to put in a new 14th Street, there's 3 properties in a trust that just got entered into a trust this year that there's already some development interest in. And we definitely need to get the sewer line in to take advantage of that. Ultimately, right now, we're using the sewer lines in the park with the existing user basically as a septic system, and we're coming in to pump that out. So it's functional, it's just not the long-term solution. The city has looked at this. This is our #1 CMIP priority for next year. The 30-year projections, the annual debt service is something that looks like the city could afford on that 30-year schedule. And so while we're still working through our budget, we believe that will continue to be the #1 priority and in all likelihood be something we advance. From a strategic land acquisition standpoint, this is something that's just come up in discussions, and again, whether we've had brokers or developers out to look, as well as just conversations with elected officials. Again, here's the park itself. The balance back here is the 100 acres we haven't touched yet, but the 78 acres that's directly across 222nd Street from the business park, but has 2440 frontage, is about 78 acres. It's under a single ownership group. I know this property's been contemplated for commercial development in the past. Here's County Road 1. This 113 acres is owned by the same single ownership group as the 78 acres to the north. And again, if we're talking about things that can still happen, whether it's in, near, or around the park, we thought this was something that could be teed up for discussion, whether it occurs now or not.
So if you would purchase the 78 acres, then the city would annex it, and then you'd take 222nd into the city street system?
I think we'd be willing to have a discussion on anything. At this point, I think what we're trying to get down to is, and then that's really the end of the slides that we prepared. But what we were trying to do is come up with a list of things that we could focus on from a discussion standpoint, answer any questions. Hopefully, I didn't run through it too fast. I did want to highlight the significant work that's been put in to get this park ready. We're very proud that we have a user in place, and they've been a great partner. In fact, for the marketing event we had, they very graciously offered their building because the weather was kind of suspect and we weren't sure what was going to happen. In fact, I think it snowed the day before or 2 days before. So they've been a great partner, and we'd like to get them some neighbors. But having said that, again, our #1 priority is just the retention of those funds for the continued development of the park itself.
Do you have any costs, like for the sewer to be finished?
Yeah, so on the sewer, we paid our city engineer to do the preferred alignment. We've acquired all of the necessary easements, and we're about, I'd say, 95% or greater complete with the design, the engineering design. So when we're ready to go to CMIP, we've issued a reimbursement resolution so that maybe we can get some refund on those funds that we've already expended. But the primary cost would be to actually do the construction of that sanitary sewer line.
What is the estimated cost?
I think we're looking to bond about $2.5 million. So that 3.6 again is representative of P&I for 30 years. Yeah.
Okay. Has there been any discussion about trying to get another access to the park, to the access back to Kansas Avenue?
We've not had that discussion. KDOT, we participate with them in a corridor access management plan. Their primary focus for us now has been to do 14th Street as kind of that south edge main road. But they've not suggested anything to us. I know where Honey Creek Road and Kansas Avenue used to have access, but they've eliminated
Yeah, they
those
eliminated
aspects.
it when we did the County Road 1 project.
Yep.
But it would sure be another access to the industrial park. People coming down 24, not everybody's going to come down I-70 and get off at 212 exit. So,
That's true.
but I don't know how difficult it'd be to get another access. And do we have any idea how long this little stretch of 222nd is going to hold up if we start adding more businesses? I mean, we're going to have to do something with that little stretch of road also.
Yeah, we did some improvements to that as part of the overall scope of work, but it was primarily focused on that road really had no shoulder to it, and we wanted to at least introduce some shoulder capacity there. The road itself is, my understanding is it's pretty thick pavement there, but I wouldn't describe it as a road it's not to the conditions we
County
were.
Road 1 project.
Correct.
Commissioners, if I could, if you don't mind, I think the presentation was good. It does show, I think that the city of Tonganoxie met exactly what the agreement said they were going to do with the funds to this point. And in that agreement, and there was a previous interlocal agreement that had been proposed for this development that the Attorney General had shot down, which then necessitated the agreement directly with the city of Tonganoxie, which I think has worked out really well. But at all times, it was contemplated there would be additional expenses for this project, and that our portion was inside the park, and the city then was responsible for the other improvements for this park. That's kind of all along the line, that's what had been contemplated. So I appreciate that they show the other expenditures that they have incurred as part of this project. I think if we want to throw County Road 1 in there, the county may be in excess of $20 million of development in that corridor at this point. But what we're concerned about, and it's, I guess it's not really a concern as much as we have an agreement in place. The agreement says when this is done, the funds come back to the county. So from a staff's perspective, we believe that's what needs to happen. If the city wants to make an additional application for use of those funds, that's what they're bringing forward today. I would challenge that request should probably run through the Port Authority, which is what the group that we have really handed off the economic development requests to. We've recently made some changes to the Port Authority and makeup so that all the cities have representation. And I would suggest that this request probably should go through the Port Authority first. Then if the Port Authority deems the merit of it, they could bring it back to the Board of County Commissioners and ask for additional funding. But in the interim, I think the funds should come back to the county. And that's just my take on it. Nothing against this project or what they're requesting. I think that, again, that they've done a great job on this. I'm just looking at the agreements that are in place and how they were really anticipated to play out.
What kind of delay is that going to cause on them being able to get the project moving forward?
I don't think there would be any delay on them being able to move forward with what they're doing. A lot of what they're contemplating is future development that they don't have any requests for right now, and the sewer line was not something that was anticipated to be paid for with these funds anyways.
I was thinking of the logistics of it. If they were still going to get it in this next fiscal year, this would still allow them to do that even if it went to the Port Authority, correct?
I can't speak to that, but I would think so. And one other thing to bring up is we have had other projects, not an industrial park necessarily, but we had other projects that were part of that sales tax money that we had an engineer's estimate on, I'm going to mention McIntyre because with the city of Lansing, when we bid that project, it came in significantly below what we had engineers' estimates on and what we had anticipated paying for it. The city of Lansing came to the county and asked if they could keep that money and use it in the city of Lansing, and the commissioners at the time said, no, that's not how this works. We're funding this project. If you have an additional request, bring that request back up through the right process, not just because there was a savings on what we bid versus anticipated.
When did you anticipate getting started on these projects?
Well, like I said, the sanitary sewer lines are top CMIP project. I don't know if we'd be in a position to try to issue that this year and defer payment. Our thought on that was to get it to a point where the construction, we felt comfortable that if we got another project in the park, the installation and construction of the sewer line could keep pace with a building going vertical. But we're ready to go. I mean, we've done, like I mentioned, we did the layout, the easement acquisition, and the design.
So what's your response to if we would route this through the Port Authority? Do you have any comments on that?
Not understanding what that process looks like, you know, and I appreciate Mr. Loughery's comments and position on it. I guess, you know, I would go back to, I feel like, again, we're very appreciative of receiving the grant, just like the other community. And, you know, we've been good stewards of the money. We've pushed everything through a very public procurement process. We took advantage of competitive bidding, and we've got some funds left. And I think if you look at how competitive is Leavenworth County in the industrial development world, we're lagging right now. We're struggling a little bit. And I think there's some creative incentives that could be put in place to elevate our position so that we're not just one of every other metropolitan area in the Kansas City region that's got a business part to push. You know, they're promoting, they have access to other incentives. Again, I'm just asking the county commission to provide some consistent feedback. I don't feel like we're asking for anything different than any other community that received this type of funding has asked for in terms of being able to fully take advantage of the $5 million grant. You know, maybe it's a misread on it, but sometimes when you have a clawback provision, you know, it's more of a penalty, like did you not get things done, did it not advance? And I don't think that's a situation here, and I'm not suggesting that's what Mr. Loughery has ever indicated to me. But I think the fact that we got the project done to the standards that we designed it to, thinking that we weren't going to have enough funds available to finish it, and now we have some funds available, we'd like at least the chance to take a look at that and have, again, this level of discussion with you folks of what's left, what can be done, are there enhancements to be made, and what is the most competitive use of these funds, again, if granting a $5 million grant to get a park developed and make it market ready.
I agree, George, that Tonganoxie is very good stewards of the money on this project, and to have the money left over, you could have spent it all inside the park and we wouldn't be here today. I do support the sewer getting done, but I don't know about the spec building thing. That really would need to go through the Port Authority. And I said I do got some concerns of the 222nd Street. I'm afraid we're going to have to put some money into that, even with your existing business there with the trucks. Because I don't know how long that will hold up.
George, this is Commissioner Schimke. Quick question for you.
Yes.
I'm curious where you think the larger miss was on this project, because ultimately, you know, hey, look, when Tonganoxie or the LCDC or any economic development group is trying to, you know, promote a industrial park, you want it to be shovel ready, and clearly without sewer, it's not shovel ready. So I'm curious, kind of your thoughts here after the fact of what we can do on future projects, so that while I agree, I think you guys have done a tremendous job and great stewards of the money, and that's what all of us should be doing, because I think we have to remember whose money it is.
Right.
Where do you think the bigger miss was there? Because it seems like And I'm not opposed to figuring out the best way to spend, that remaining budget on economic development that furthers Tonganoxie and Leavenworth County, but it seems impossible to me that we could have an industrial park with the intentions to be turnkey shovel ready, and it's not turnkey shovel ready. So what can you teach us from this from your position, how we got here?
Yeah, great question, Commissioner, and I appreciate you asking it. I don't know if I'd say it was a miss. I think all along we had planned to eventually run the interceptor sewer line to the park, and I think it was just a matter of, do we have users in the park that need that level of service versus, what does running that interceptor sewer line accomplish for the community as a whole? And that's why I wanted to show on that slide, there's a lot more property that gets impacted by this from a development. You create a much larger development opportunity by having the sewer in place, that sewer line in place. And obviously, we've designed it to a capacity that doesn't only account for the business park, it accounts for all of that acreage between the city limits and the business park, and quite possibly future expansion. As I mentioned, the sewer line that we did put inside the park, we ran it all the way to the southern edge of the park, or the southern edge of the city limits there. So I don't know if I'd say it was a miss as much as it was, kind of a planned interval that the expenses related to that particular piece of infrastructure would come into place when we had a user demanding it. And we're there. And like I mentioned, we've been servicing that user, bi-weekly or bi-monthly, I should say. But at this point, we're getting more leads, we're getting more interest, more activity. And you're absolutely right. We don't want to have to try to explain, sewer should be done 9 months from now. And so we want to get out in front of it, and that's why it's the #1 CMIP project for the city itself.
Well, no, I appreciate the background. Very, very helpful, and I think the planning has been great. Obviously, I wish that anytime we do massive road improvements or projects, that infrastructure, that was a requirement, so you're not having to go back, after the fact. You'd love for all of it to be done in parallel, even if that means maybe less projects, but they're getting done, and they're getting done the right way, so that you don't have to turn leads away. To date, do you guys know if you've had to turn any, potential development projects away because you're not ready?
No. In fact, I think we've had pretty positive comments, because if they ask that level of question, once they realize the connection isn't to the plant yet, their follow-up, once we say we've already got the easements, we've got the design done, and we can quite frankly outpace their vertical construction of the building. So it's not been an issue.
And just to be clear, and I don't blame you for asking, because I would do the same thing, but there is the county's ability via this grant to fund this project. The city's in a position where it can't do it, or it's not in a position where it can't do it. The plan is done. The strategy could be deployed. You'd rather use this funding source because it's there and identified if you can.
That's correct, yeah.
George, did the Port Authority provide some funding for utilities for the Armory?
That predates me, so I'm probably not the best subject matter expert, but I do believe they did offer some funding to
run
make
water, gas, or something?
I cannot remember.
Yeah, I thought there was something about that. So if we didn't run funds through the Port Authority for something like that, maybe that would clear up any legal issues that we might have in our existing contract. But that would be a question for Mr. Van Parys.
Well, in the existing contract, bullet points D, E, and F, it says the county shall contribute the sum of $5 million, and I'm going to paraphrase this, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you all.
Thank you.
That the Tonganoxie will do the improvements that they're talking about, and they will try to get that accomplished within 18 months from the date of entry of the contract. Bullet point E says the city shall fund the entirety of the remaining costs of the project, to include all costs related to the extension and maintenance of necessary city utility services to the industrial park site and maintenance of improvements to the park. And then the bullet point F says that the city will not transfer or pay any other governmental entity or use any of these funds off-site. And that's why I think we're here today, is to, those 3 bullet points dictate that the monies at this point should come back to the county. Any additional expenditure of those funds needs to be approved either through a new agreement or an amendment to this agreement.
All right, I have a question for the council. Would we, if we just did nothing, didn't change any language in these agreements, would we be legally within our rights to just allow them to keep the money?
Commissioners, the contract, as Mr. LOUGHRY stated, has basically been completed. And I do concur, and I've issued Mr. LOUGHRY the opinion that under the terms of the contract, the balance of the $5 million that was not expended are county funds and would normally be returned. We have had discussions with Mr. Brakovic. He's been very forward with this, very proactive, in that the city is making their request. They be allowed to retain those funds via a new agreement. If we took no action, that leaves approximately $1.7 million of taxpayers' money not, I would call, properly allocated for any particular purpose. If it is the wish of the county to utilize those remaining balance funds for some purpose other than placement back into the general funds of the county, that a new agreement would be required. Commissioner Smith alluded to possibly asking the Port Authority to look into that. That's certainly one option you have. Otherwise, if no action were to be taken by the board, it would be my opinion that a request to the city of Tonganoxie to remit the balance of the unexpended funds would be the most appropriate course of action. But of course, Mr. Brakovic and other representatives of the city of Tonganoxie are here to request that those funds be utilized otherwise.
So we need to have you draft a new agreement allowing that to take place.
Well, the city has submitted a proposed agreement that, and I have not scanned it for a particular detail, but it could serve as a basis for this. You wouldn't be reinventing the wheel. The county has supported an industrial park in the city of Leavenworth, has supported the industrial park in the city of Tonganoxie. So the legal mechanisms are relatively straightforward. It's really a policy decision at this point in time. And Commissioners, I would like to throw my 2 cents in and commend the city of Tonganoxie for their stewardship. I've been doing this for quite a while, and rarely, if ever, have I seen a public project be completed satisfactorily under budget by the degree that the city of Tonganoxie did on this project.
I agree. But, trying to think.
This is Commissioner SCHIMKE. I was actually going to applaud, but I thought that'd be weird via the phone. Well done, George and team. So
Thank you. We definitely had a great team on this project.
I would just add kind of one last thing, and I think, had this been handled slightly differently, more often than not in projects like this, rather than being awarded a full grant, you're approved to spend up to but not exceed, and you're kind of drawing against an approved fund, right? So as expenses are incurred, checks are cut, and that's typically how I would recommend or see projects like this being completed in the future. That said, there's still dollars to be allocated, and there's a great need in that industrial park. So I do want to see the money go towards economic development in Tonganoxie and not, a fund to be determined later. And I think we have identified that the Port Authority is that, mechanism and arm of Leavenworth County. And I think, we can trust that board to be a good steward. And I know they work very closely with all the communities, but I'm not aware of a bunch of shovel-ready economic development projects on the list. I think there's lots of stuff out there that hasn't been defined and there's not great scope to. So I think, working with the Port Authority to assign, those funds, and I would think that, George and the City of Lansing is in a great, City of Tonganoxie, City of Tonganoxie is in a great position to take advantage of those funds and further their efforts. So that would be my recommendation to the group.
Okay. Any other comments? Thoughts? County Road 30?
Well, I just wanted to say I'm on the same page as Chad. I think, working on the sewer makes sense. especially since this was money that was saved by Tonganoxie. I think the funds are kind of earmarked already for Tonganoxie, so I was trying to think of some ways we could spend this that would enhance the county and the city at the same time. You know, I'm on the same page too as Doug, as long as 222nd is the county's responsibility. I think, like the sewer, that's something that probably should be addressed, is improving 222nd or even County Road 1 access to the park. And then, you know, and I'm always looking for ways to fund County Road 30 too, which would also enhance Tonganoxie. So, you know, maybe a 50-50 split, something directly on the park, like the sewer, and maybe spend money on transportation infrastructure in the immediate area would be a good answer. But again, you know, we wouldn't have this money if you guys wouldn't have done such a good job, you know, being frugal with the funds. So I think it's important to put the money at least back into the area.
Well, I think the sewer is very important because you're not going to put another business on a septic system. It's going to have to be done before you get another business.
And this would make more sense than before you get to like a benefit district situation or something like that with the next couple businesses.
Correct.
Being shovel ready, I think, is very important. But access and transportation, I think, are equally important. And I worry about 222nd Street holding up. So I think that should have been built into the original design. That was maybe overlooked. That's going to be the county's responsibility. So I don't want to see...
Unless they buy the 78 acres across the street and annex and they take the whole road.
And by saying the county's responsibility, I hate to see an industrial park put in, but it still costs the taxpayers money for something like improving 222nd Street, because it wasn't built in the cost for the park. So
we weren't here then, Jeff.
Yeah.
No, and I think, Commissioner, those are fair comments. And, you know, in my discussion and kind of the look back with the engineering group, I think that they're very genuine in this comment that if we would have known there could have been this type of savings built in, we would have pushed other scopes in this project. But we just really thought hitting those major scopes was going to drain the available funding, in knowing that the city had already issued other debt to get other pieces of it done. So,
and I think we're kind of lucky now that we've got funds left over. We can take a step back and say, well, what did we miss? And like Chad said, I think we missed the sewer, and I think we didn't think about 222nd Street. So maybe that's probably the most important things probably to address now. Just my opinion.
Any other questions or comments? Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I didn't come with prepared statements. However,
This Mayor Freese.
You've
got to introduce yourself.
My name is David Freese. I live at 1012 Pleasant Street, Tonganoxie, and I'm also the mayor of Tonganoxie. We're in a unique position in Tonganoxie at this point. It's very strange how many people are rowing the boat in the same direction, and it's a wonderful thing. George has a mandate from City Council to, after we take care of our staff and after we take care of our roads, to find projects that will make the city and the county money. Find projects that will create revenue. And if we lose this money in any way, it'll cut one of our legs out from under us, but we'll keep finding those projects and we'll keep working. But after all the discussion over County Road 1, after all the discussion of our industrial park, this money would go a long ways towards getting us down the road on County Road 1, in my opinion. And I think that will be maybe the first step in getting growth going farther down County Road 1, which we all want. And we want it in town, and the people in town want it also. It's just if we lose this particular amount of money, and I've not read the contract, no one's ever provided a copy of that to me, but
if we lose this money, we'll have to just direct our attention to other things. And we've done so many things in the town, from the new library to the new school to the new turf, and the positive comments that we received after I posted that we had put in for the space-based thing. I expected a ton of negative comments, and I put it even on the ones where there are notorious for taking negative comments. And it was just positive. There's just a lot of positive thought towards what we can do. And if we have this money, I know George would do the best to get this thing done. If we go through Port Authority, it will take longer, regardless of any intention. It just will happen that way. So on behalf of the people of Tonganoxie, I just really ask that we're able to retain this money and keep progress going and keep working towards a positive future. I appreciate your time. If you have any questions, I'm glad to answer.
Any questions of the mayor?
Well, thank you for all you're doing.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I do have a question to County Councilman. So if we were going to proceed as a body here, we would make a motion to have the staff and yourself draft a interlocal agreement to that effect?
I think it should be charged to Mr. LOUGHRY solely. No,
Solely?
Commissioners, yes, that'd be appropriate. It's really, as I stated earlier, at this stage, the terms of the interlocal agreement have been fully complied with by both parties. There's a remaining balance of funds. It's a policy decision on your part as to how to utilize those funds. Again, your options would return them, request they be returned for use for other purposes, either in your general fund or for other economic development projects. Or some agreement, you could allow the city of Tonganoxie to retain them. It would require a new agreement. It could be, you could utilize the services of the Port Authority. Mayor PARYS obviously is requesting that the city of Tonganoxie be allowed to retain these funds. It's a policy decision on your part. You decide what you want to do, we'll get it done for you.
And I guess where I was headed with that is find a solution that instead of letting them keep the funds, find something to spend the money on where the county gets the money back but spends it on something that benefits the city of Tonganoxie, that they feel is just as good as what they were going to use the money on.
And I believe these bonds were all sold with the intent for economic development for these parks. So any leftover money should be...
Well, the bonds were sold for the sales tax projects. We had adopted a resolution after the fact that allowed $5 million to go towards this park and $5 million to go towards the Leavenworth Industrial Park. So they were, actually the funds are part of the sales tax. They wouldn't go back to the general fund. But that was what they originally were. Then we adopted a resolution that allowed us to use the $5 million for the park in Tonga and the $5 million for the park in Leavenworth.
Economic development is a broad area. We spend on a lot of things, infrastructure, of course.
And Bill's not here right now, but you probably know, Doug, off the top of your head,
Okay.
about how much would 222nd Street take to improve to an industrial standard road?
Probably $1.7 million.
1.7 million?
Well, I mean, when we did County Road 1, would we have $12 million in that?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
So, yeah, it's $1 million project, more than likely.
You see where I'm headed with that, George, is
Yeah.
instead of just handing it back to you and having to go through all this, hey, the county's getting it back automatically, but it's already been earmarked for Tonganoxie, so let's find something the county can spend that would save the taxpayers money instead of them footing the bill for 222nd. You're going to need that anyway. So
That's why we need Kansas Avenue access back to 24 Highway, so when we do work on that road. So, I don't know how difficult that'd be to get another access from KDOT. Probably difficult.
But I think the sewer is very important too. So.
Sewers are very important. Because like I said, the next business is going to have sewers. You can't keep running a pumper truck out there. So what's the consensus of the board? to,
I guess I'll throw something out there and we can see where the consensus is. I'd like to make a motion that we have the county councilor draft an interlocal agreement to extend this agreement and allow Tonganoxie to retain the funds for the projects presented.
That's like the opposite of what I said. But that's the motion.
I just don't want to delay it because we've had so many things that get delayed when it comes to economic development. And if we
well, delaying
they're
it
ready to
would be-
move ahead.
Delaying it would be if there was a business waiting to open up pending on sewers.
They seem to be ready.
And Mike, I don't disagree. This Commissioner Schimke, I don't disagree with you. And if I thought this was going to delay or potentially, terminate their efforts, in which case we couldn't get sewer to that park, that would be one thing. I think Tonganoxie has done a great job. I think they have a plan. I think they are moving it forward. They'd rather use our funds instead of issuing their debt. And when I say our taxpayer funds, and I totally get it, I would ask for the exact same thing. I think our job from an economic development standpoint at the county is figure out, best way to spend those funds in the county. And I'm not suggesting this isn't it. And I think the entity, the group, to help to determine what's best is the Port Authority. That's why they're there. They have mechanisms and capabilities to help with these kind of things. So that would be my recommendation. It's not to delay or potentially harm the efforts. I think Tonganoxie's done a fantastic job, and this is in no way penalizing them. Again, if this was a scenario where they couldn't get it done, they've got a plan. They will get it done with or without these funds. They'd rather use these funds. I don't blame them. I would try to do the very same thing. I think the Port Authority is a mechanism to help them do that. So let's allow them to do their job. So I would make a motion that the funds be returned. Those funds be then dedicated to the Port Authority for furthering economic development. We've got 2 industrial parks. One's turnkey, shovel-ready. The other one's not. I would think that'd be very high on their list to fix. So that would be my motion.
Okay. Commissioner Stevens' motion died of a lack of second. I have Commissioner Schimke's motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second. This is Commissioner KAAZ.
In that, oh, go ahead.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
And in that motion, really the purpose is to have the Port Authority work with the City of Tonganoxie to find a place to spend those funds that benefit the City of Tonganoxie's industrial park as well as the county. I think
Chad, your motion does not specifically specify that the funds would be
earmarked for the City of Tonganoxie. Have the
So
Port.
I'm not going to include in the motion that all 1.7 million has to be spent to further Tonganoxie's cause. The reality is if Leavenworth or Lansing or Easton had a cause that had a 10x return, no offense, I'm going to support it. I don't know of any of those projects or causes. I think this is one of those that's pretty obvious and ready to go, and there's great demand and there's need. And unlike the rest of our community, Tonganoxie, I'm super happy and rooting for you that you guys actually have connectivity. That's one of the reasons we've fallen so far behind. I can give you a dozen examples of communities that were behind most of our communities in Leavenworth County 10, 15 years ago. All of them have beat us. They beat us significantly, and they beat us because they're on highways. So, again, no offense, I can't imagine a better place to spend this at this time, but my motion does not require it be spent in Tonganoxie. I think the Port Authority should do their due diligence, and this probably is the best opportunity that's been brought to us to date, and I would think the Port Authority would recognize that. But again, if there's another opportunity, business development, economic development in Leavenworth County that has a bigger return, not my job to tell the Port Authority what to do.
Commissioner Schimke, you left out the city of Basel in your list of cities.
I've left off a few cities. That's no offense to Basel. I would love for them to have a project that also has a 10x return.
I agree.
And Linwood and anybody else I forgot. My apologies.
And I guess where I was headed was I would make a motion just like Commissioner Schimke's, except I would have the Port Authority work with the City of Tonga to come up with a solution that would benefit the county as equally as the City of Tonga for those funds.
But that's what they do.
Right, for the City of Tonga. for the city.
George, this is Commissioner Schimke again. I know that you work, if not daily, weekly with the LCDC and Port Authority. If that stops for any reason or they stop taking your phone calls, you let me know.
Will do.
Okay, any further discussion? And voting?
No.
Aye.
Nay.
Commissioner Schimke, Commissioner KAAZ.
Commissioner KAAZ votes aye.
Commissioner Schimke votes aye.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
So your odds are good.
What's that?
So your odds are good.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
We're not saying
Agenda
no.
with them.
we'll,
We can make recommendations to the Port Authority.
Yeah.
well, we appreciate your consideration. Thanks.
Thanks, George.
Thank you. Does anybody have anything to report on before we go into our executive session? Mr. Richmeyer, he wrote a nice article on the census last week. Did anybody get a chance to read that? No, it was a good article, reminding people about the census and what it does for our communities. I got a packet from Kansas for Health Freedom. We'll distribute it to everybody. Did any of the rest of you get this? Okay, I will distribute it to your mailboxes. We got the relay for the Rotary Relay for Life. Stan Cherry about donating money for American Cancer Society. We have the ribbon cutting at the Leavenworth County Humane Society tomorrow afternoon from 4 to 6, I believe, on Gilman Road, the new facility. A couple others. And am I listing off anything that's coming up? Does anybody else have anything they know of? Well, the ribbon cutting is from 4 to 6 at 100 West Gilman Road at the Leavenworth County Humane Society. They're also having something over on the weekend if you can't make it. And then Relay for Life is June 27th. It's going to be a virtual relay, I guess. But the number to donate any money, if you don't want to do it online, is 913-651-2094, and they'll make arrangements to take your donations. And did we got anything else anybody's got? No meetings? Everything's still kind of shut down for meetings.
Republican Party picnic.
Saturday, yeah, large turnout. Very large turnout.
This is Commissioner KAAZ.
Yes.
I attended 2 virtual meetings for the Workforce Partnership day before yesterday, and there are several different grants that they have applied for that most certainly will benefit several residents of the city of Leavenworth in the employment sector. So I think that there's some exciting things that may be happening there, and if people need to remember that they can access workforce development services, those who are unemployed presently and looking for work, because there's several pretty good jobs out there that are available and they're waiting to assist.
Commissioner KAAZ, did you call in on the governor's conference call last Friday?
Yes, I did, and there wasn't a tremendous amount to report other than our numbers are kind of creeping up, and that, it would probably be wise to make every effort to try to observe the recommendations.
I agree.
For the prevention of the spread.
Okay.
And he also accepted the resignation of the current, the Department of Labor head, and has temporarily assigned another individual to take over that. There were some mishaps with double payments of unemployment that now are being stepped back.
Yeah, some people had trouble getting it, and some people got double. So now it's clawback
Right.
time.
And then the people that got double, they fought back, and then it kind of created a little bit of havoc in their lives, and so they're trying to fix all of that.
Yeah. Okay, and did commissioners all get a copy of an email from some residents of Basehor concerning about zoning in the city of Basehor and around?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, we did.
All right, well, our comprehensive plan is going to address our part as far as in the city. That doesn't involve the county commissioners. The city's on their own on their zoning. But we are working on our comp plan. It would have been done if it wasn't for the COVID virus, so what are we looking at on our comp plan? We pushing that out probably till September, October for completion?
I think the last time I talked with the director for planning and zoning, she stated it was probably like an August timeframe, but September, depending upon how meetings fall out.
Between budget and figuring out where we're going to, how we spend them funds, August is going to be a pretty busy month.
Right. So, it's on task. I think they're ready to move forward with it when we can fit it into the schedule. But yeah, it's probably August to September timeframe would be realistic.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have anything else to report on?
I have one other thing I probably should address. There's been some comment on social media about the county's role in the school district locating the Linwood School out in the country, and that is not really our role. That's not really our job. That's the school district makes a decision where they're going to locate their school.
Mm-hmm.
We make the decision on the infrastructure as far as what the county's part is on the road situation.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that is also the state, not the county. But I just want to make that a clarification because there's been some comments about that the county hasn't done this or the county hasn't done that, and that's not our role.
Right. We are not the school board, but at the same time, we did recognize the route as needing to be improved, the County Road 2, 158th Street, south of I-70.
For a lot of
and we've asked for a letter of support, and we received that, I believe, from the school district.
I believe we did.
And we sent that on to KDOT.
And the school district also is supporting the traffic light study at the
That's
corner.
correct. That's what I said. We got.
So we're trying to work together on traffic safety.
Yeah, but like I said, we did not pick the spot where the school is. And also, we got, like I said, we need to get County Road 2 upgraded, and if that's probably going to help get that upgraded, finished out. It should have been done many, many years ago, but the funds were diverted somewhere else. But now it's going to have to happen, whether it's through help from KDOT or, well, no, it's County Route 2. It'll have to be KDOT funding.
Well, we are working on that.
And we will not, maybe I'm speaking for the board, but we will not form a sewer district and take over the lagoons down there. Is that safe to say?
Yeah.
Okay. So I know a lot of people's concerned that we're going to start a sewer district down there and that the county would take over the sewer district and allow subdivisions to go into it and serve the school. But that's not the case. We are not creating another sewer district of lagoons.
And there are certain rules when a school comes in, as far as the zoning, it's correct me if I'm wrong, zoning on a school is allowed.
Schools and churches are allowed in any zoning, any zoning area. So there's no need to rezone it. There's nothing that can be protested. It's just that's allowed statutorily, state level.
So anyway, I just thought that we should have that, put that out there.
I've gotten some calls too.
Yeah.
But like I said, we're not the school board.
Talk to your school board. School board's real important.
All elected positions are important.
School board gets neglected.
All right. Okay, then I'll entertain a motion. If no one else has anything, I'll entertain a motion to executive session.
I move that the board recess for a closed executive meeting for discussion of a subject involving the legal interests of the county as justified by KSA 75-4319B2 for consultation with legal counsel for the board, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship, and that board resume open meeting. How long do we need, Dave?
Commissioner, I'd ask or suggest 20 minutes.
And the board resume open meeting at 10:45. In the meeting room of the board, present in the executive meeting will be Commissioners CULBERTSON, KAAZ, SCHIMKE, Smith, STIEBEN, Senior County Councilor David Van Paris, and County Administrator Mark LOUGHRY.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the executive session motion? Voting? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner KAAZ votes aye.
Commissioner Schimke votes aye.
Let the record show we have returned from executive session and turning to regular session. Discussion was limited to legal interest of the county. No decisions were made.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of County Commissioners, this is David Van Paris. The agenda item you have is discussion Fire District Number 1. I believe in yesterday's mail or today's mail, Mr. LOUGHRY received a letter dated June 19th, 2020 from the City of Lansing. It references Fire District Number 1. It references the existing, soon-to-expire interlocal agreement between the county, the City of Lansing, and the townships of High Prairie and Delaware. And it reads as follows. On June 18, 2020, the Lansing City Council approved a motion directing the City of Lansing to withdraw its existing notice of intent to terminate the referenced agreement. As Mayor of Lansing, I have been directed to send this notice advising you the city withdraws its notice of intent to terminate previously issued in December of 2018. Commissioners, I would state to you it is my opinion, having reviewed the interlocal agreement, that there is no provision in the interlocal agreement, which is a contract, that authorizes the City of Lansing to withdraw its notice to terminate previously issued. To acknowledge that withdrawal would require the consent of the county and both townships. Absent that, it is my opinion to you that the interlocal agreement expires on June 30th, 2020. It had been previously discussed that prior to the expiration of the interlocal agreement, a new interlocal agreement could be negotiated, but that not having taken place, it is my opinion to you that the action by the City of Lansing to declare that it is withdrawing its notice of intent is null and void, is not being authorized by the contract, and in fact in contravention of the terms of the contract. Based upon the impending expiration of the interlocal agreement and the statutory resumption of control and over the operation of the Fire District by this Board of County Commissioners, I would like to suggest the following course of action. That a letter be sent to the City of Lansing as quickly as possible, acknowledging receipt of their letter of June 19th, 2020, and expressing that it is the opinion of the Board of County Commissioners that their declaration of withdrawal of their notice to terminate is ineffective and void. That the City of Lansing acknowledge that position on or before the close of business, either today or the close of business tomorrow, and that in the absence of any acknowledgement that the Board of County Commissioners take appropriate legal action in district court to secure as much as is possible the continued operation of Fire District Number 1 through a declaratory judgment action and any necessary temporary and permanent injunction as would be needed.
Okay. So the letter of intent not to withdraw doesn't have anything to do with the lawsuits that's on appeal, correct?
There is a current pending legal action that dealt with the issue of the disposition of the assets of Fire District Number 1 based upon the City of Lansing's notice to terminate. That's before the Court of Appeals, as it's outside of, actually, I would suggest to you, consideration of this present matter.
Okay.
And question, and this is probably for our two commissioners that were on the
committee, we have exhausted every avenue short of litigation. Is that correct?
Well, I wouldn't presume to say that every option imaginable, because I'm sure there are always more. It's at this point in time seems pretty clear that not all of the stakeholders are in agreement or on the same page. There does not seem to be a way forward with all of the existing interlocal agreement stakeholders, parties. I think the challenge has been and will continue to be public safety and fire protection, and I'm concerned personally with the staff that has already resigned, and potentially more resignations in the future if we don't provide the stability that in this case only the county can. And so it would be my recommendation that effective July 1, that the Board of County Commissioners assume, control and oversight of Fire District 1. And as I understand it, we cannot act in that capacity for more than 60 days. So between July 1 and the 60 days following, that we appoint a new advisory board governing body, as it cannot be the Board of County Commissioners, and continue to work with all of the stakeholders and see what the future looks like and try to find an amicable solution to please all parties. But we won't have to do so under any specific dates or timelines. We don't have to rush to a decision. I think we want to make the right one. There's a lot to unpack what's happened over the last
18 months?
18, yeah, I mean, it's, well, I was going to say a decade
Officially 18
plus,
months.
A lot to unpack there. So that would be my recommendation to the board after being a part of as many meetings as they can and talking with all parties, including staff, that be the best direction for the board.
And also asking for declaratory judgment?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I would again suggest the course of action. First, notify the City of Lansing of your response to their letter of June 19th. Ask that they confirm your understanding of the terms of the interlocal agreement that does not contain a provision for them to withdraw their notice to terminate, that the notice to terminate issued in 2018 is effective, and that effective June 30th, 2020, the interlocal agreement expires, the current Board of Trustees expires, the joint body expires, and by operation of law, operation and authority for operation of Fire District Number 1 devolves back to the Board of County Commissioners. That if the City of Lansing does not deem it fit to make that acknowledgement within the set period of time, that I be authorized to initiate such legal action as is appropriate, to include but possibly not be limited to a request for a declaratory judgment action and request for temporary and permanent injunctions.
So moved.
Yeah.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the fire district? Voting?
Okay.
Oh, if you had,
I was just
go
going to
ahead.
say, I mean, this is not state the obvious, but all this litigation and expenditure of taxpayers' money between various entities of government having to go to court is just, basically it's a tragedy, but it appears that this is the only thing we can do.
It's the world we live in.
It's too bad. I was hoping they would be able to come to some kind of a agreement.
But we have to bring some stability to this fire district
And we got to protect public safety. That's our job.
and the employees.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, as part of the motion, there was the matter of a response deadline for the City of Lansing. I would suggest, as a courtesy, to allow the City of Lansing to issue its acknowledgement of the position of the Board of County Commissioners as being proper not later than 5 p.m. close of business tomorrow, which would be June 25th.
Is that possible?
I think at this point in time, the necessity of certainty over the operation of Fire District Number 1 is of paramount interest, and although it in all likelihood would either require some action on the part of the City of Lansing through an emergency meeting or otherwise, that your options to protect the interests of the continued operation of Fire District Number 1, given the current time frame, are limited, and that's the most appropriate course of action that I can discern at this time.
So are you going to modify your motion?
Modify your motion to
I'll modify my motion to include notification to the city of Lansing with a response request by end of business Friday. Thursday, end of business Thursday.
June 20th.
I think the challenge you always have is I don't know that they're even scheduled to meet until obviously next Thursday, so no matter what date you set, you're already past the deadline, whether it's Friday, Thursday, Monday.
All right.
So I think it's immediate. I think our letter has to get out immediate, so today,
Okay.
virtually and otherwise.
You going to modify your second?
I think he
Or-
will. I don't know, whoever.
Second. All right.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Then voting.
Aye.
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 Commissioner KAAZ? All right.
Mr. Schimke votes aye.
All right. Thank you.
I think it may be important to point out that while that is a very short timeline, it was the city that put us in that position, not the other way
June
around,
19th
by
letter.
waiting until the last minute to give us notification.
Right. Right. Okay. All right. Anything else on this? Or before we go into our next executive session, then I'll entertain a motion to recess to executive session.
I move that this board recess from open session and go into closed executive session to discuss personnel matters, non-elected personnel as justified by KSA 75-4319B1, and to protect the privacy interests of the persons involved, and that this board resume open session in the meeting room at, how long do we need?
Commissioner Culbertson, I would suggest 11:30.
Resume at 11:30. President executive session will be Commissioners Culbertson, KAAZ, Smith, Schimke, Stieben, County Administrator Mark LOUGHRY, and Senior County Councilor Dave Van Paris, and others as may be invited by the board.
Second.
I have a motion second on the executive session. Any further discussion and voting?
Aye.
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 Mr. Schimke votes aye.
All right. Let the record show we returned from executive session. Discussion was limited to non-elected personnel. No decisions were made. All right, we're returned to regular session. We are ready for a public comment portion of our meeting, at the end of our meeting. Let's see, public comment will be for 5 minutes, and don't expect any interaction from the board. Mr. Timberg?
Commissioner, only downfall of 2 executive meetings, I was able to write more to say.
You got 5 minutes to say.
I'll be speaking about the Kaw Valley Sand Pit. My name's Mark Tinberg. I reside at 16904 Kreider Road, Bonner Springs, Kansas. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I've lived in the southern end of Leavenworth County my whole life. I have driven larger trucks for 46 years, Class 8 trucks for the last 40 years. I farm for a living, and during harvest, the grain I produce is hauled to a Kansas City terminal, using the very route that Kaw Valley is proposing for the truck route. I use an 18-wheeler that weighs 80,000 pounds when it's loaded, which is equivalent to the trucks Kaw Valley is proposing to use. A very stressful drive because of the narrow lanes, steep roads, and limited sight. There are several curves where the driving lanes are so narrow you must crowd the center line to keep the trailer from going off the edge of the pavement. Where it wants to go south on the gravel road at Golden Road, there is very limited sight distance of eastbound traffic. I must go that route to get to the East Lanate Bottoms because a tractor trailer cannot come in from the west because of a narrow box culvert that is in a 90-degree turn right in the little town of Lanate. You probably know where that is. It is a hair-raising experience and a luck of a draw that no one is coming when you decide to head south on the gravel road. And I've had several close calls because most of the people on Golden Road don't do the speed limit. They're really moving. Harvesting and hauling the grain is an annual process that only lasts a few weeks per year. The road cannot handle the amount of trucks Kaw Valley is proposing to run 5 days a week for the next 20-plus years. And just in a year's time, 2 lives were lost on 158th in an area where the road is straight and has good sight distance. And also during the short period of time that the courthouse was shut down because of COVID-19, there were 2 vehicle wrecks at 158th and Golden Road. One of them was a rollover, and the other one, the car was totaled right at that intersection where they're wanting to head south. Doing the math, using the most recent proposal documents available to me, what Kaw Valley is offering Leavenworth County will not pay for road improvements even over a 20-year period. The Leavenworth County taxpayers should not have to pay for a road upgrade when there is no more economic benefit than proposed. So because the road infrastructure to handle industrial and commercial traffic is not present, then a business that would produce large numbers of heavy truck traffic should not be permitted. And lastly, if any of you commissioners have not experienced riding in an 18-wheeler on this proposed truck route, I would gladly offer you a ride in my truck. Thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you. We have anything else for the board before we adjourn?
Nothing for me.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Voting.
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner CULBERTSON votes aye. Commissioner SCHIMKE votes aye.